Hey guys. So I felt for a long time now that I've kind of been led to make a video, and it'll be the most this without a doubt will be the hardest video that I've ever made before. But at the same time, I feel like it's something that can help a lot of people, and so I don't feel like I can sit on it any longer. So for a lot of you that don't know me as well, or have met me in the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, I was married for 20 years before I met April. Now, I was married super young. I was 21 years old. She was, 18. Just two kids that didn't have a clue what they were doing. Had my oldest daughter when I was, 23, and had 4 kids by the time I was 27, and just did not, young, dumb, didn't have a clue, but did the best that we could, being young parents. And in those early years, I was working a lot, just trying to survive, trying to feed our family, and 70 hours a week, 75 hours a week, and which is great, but at the same time, it didn't give me a lot of time to be a great father. What I felt like in that, the early years of their life, the formative years of their life. But so we had our ups and we had our downs. We had our good times and bad. But about 12 years into that marriage, she came to me and told me that she had been having an affair. Now let me back up and say, I don't blame her. I don't hold any animosity towards her. I'm not angry. I'm not bitter over it. I've come to a place in my life where without that season, I wouldn't know the season that I'm in now, which is a season of just such good things. I am super blessed. And so, but at the same time, she came to me after around the 12-year mark, and told me that, and it was with a man named James Hook here in Memphis. His name around town is Ashley Hook. It's not James, but for legal purposes, it's James. And so, the kicker of that is that she was pregnant in this affair. And so I asked her what she wanted to do, and she said that she desired a life with him. I asked him, I said, I met with him a couple days later after I had a chance to cool off, and say, what was your plans? And he said he had planned the same. And so I kind of just took that as the end of that marriage. But a few days later, he decided to stay with his family, and at the same time, I had my children. I felt like we could repair things, and so I stayed, and I raised that child as my own. All I asked of Ashley is, don't come around. I don't want money from you. I don't want your time. I don't want birthday gifts at Christmas. You don't exist. And so we operated under that premise for a long time. And my son, and I will call him my son until the day that I die. My son didn't know anything for the first 10, 12 years of his life, which is exactly the way I wanted it. And so we tried to make things work. Not gonna lie, I had a misstep and an affair of my own a few years after that, and we couldn't recover. And we tried, we gave it a good run, but after 20 years it was over. And so 20 years of knowing a certain thing, and then you come in and when you go to a house and you're used to a house of chaos, and you go to a house of quiet, there are some dark times. And I'm not gonna lie, if any of you have been through divorce, you probably know it's a lot different, and it's one of the loneliest places on earth to go from where you had a family to where you don't have a family anymore, at least not as you knew it. So there were a lot of hard times during that, and during the early days of that divorce, and during the early days of that divorce, this James character, he came back around. As I knew, I didn't know he would, but it didn't surprise me. And so he started trying to make inroads with my ex-wife, maybe in the hopes of getting their relationship back together. I don't know his true intentions, but I do know that I got a call. So he started coming back around, and he made somewhere along the way, he made friends with my daughter, not my oldest daughter, my second daughter. And when he made when he kind of he weaseled his way back in, he, unbeknownst to me, he started spending time with my daughter. He started writing her letters, buying her gifts, doing all these things, that spending time with her as a father would, I guess taking the place of what he thought I had not been fulfilling in her life. So May 5th, 2019, I get a call from the Shelby County Sheriff, and he said, "Mr. Conley, is your daughter Callie Conley?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he says, "Do you know of a James Hook?" And I said, "Yes, sir, I do." And he said, "Well, I've got bad news for you." And he said, "We caught James Hook in a car up in the park, at a park here in Memphis at 4 o'clock in the morning with your daughter, and he had her shirt off." I can't tell you the amount of rage that went through my body at that point, but it was an immense amount. And so I said, "Well, where are you? What park?" So I said, "I'll be there in 10 minutes. I've never driven faster in my life." And so when I got there, there was a line of sheriff's deputies in between me and him, and I could see him, and he was 150 yards away from me, and with this line of sheriffs. And I went to what looked like the man in charge, and I said, "Sir, do you have children?" And he said, "Yes, I do." I said, "So you can understand why I just want 5 minutes with him down that hill." And he said, "I can't do that." So I understood, and they were just doing their job. So fast forward, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. He ended up doing 6 months, and then got out on probation. He violated his probation a couple months later by viewing, as an SA, he was not supposed to have, access to the internet, social media. He wasn't even supposed to have a computer outside of work. And I caught him looking at my stories, and so I forwarded that to his parole officer. He got a couple more months for violating his probation, but he's out free now. And let me say this: I forgive you, Ashley Hook, and I told you I told you this the day that they took you to prison. I forgive you, but at the same time, we have consequences for our actions. I've had consequences for my actions in my past, and that's no different for you or the institution that I later sued over this, which is a mega church here in Memphis, Bellevue Baptist Church. It's the largest church in the Southern Baptist Convention, and I'll put the links in the comments. I don't want to get into it, but basically, we tried to save our marriage by going back to church. And let me again, I feel like I need to interlude a bunch of stuff. I do not blame Jesus, God, for what has happened to my family. In fact, don't feel sorry for us, because what has been meant for evil has been so great. In the fact that my daughter, who was victimized, who was taken advantage of, who in a very vulnerable time in her life was taken advantage of by a predator who had nothing but ill intentions in his heart and in his mind and his life. And she has given me the two sweetest grandbabies. She has married a man who loves her, who treats her the way that she should be treated, and she is the strongest person I know. And the reason, so everybody, why tell this now? And there's several reasons. One, I feel like we have been made to feel ashamed of this story in our town, by people that we know that know this story. Not everybody, but a lot. And it's because of that. I believe a lot of people in that particular church just have a real issue with it. And what happened was we tried to get back into church, and he was in the preschool ministry. My daughter wanted to work in the preschool ministry. Now this is, after we were divorced, that she started working in this ministry, and he was the coordinator. And so he would, slink down to her side of the hall, take her out of the classroom, take her different, parts of the campus of Bellevue. And so he was using his position of power to groom my daughter. And there were members of that church that knew that was happening. And so, after I found all that out, we filed a lawsuit against them, and it was, it was mediated out of court, and Bellevue admitted to wrongdoing and financially settled with her. So, like I said, what's the reasons? One is because of the shame that I felt like we've had to endure. That's not our fault. Two is for everyone to know how strong my daughter is. If you ever have any doubts of what a warrior she is, what an amazing person, how much courage, how much strength she has, look no further than she put that situation behind her, got married, had babies, made a life of her own, when she could have dug a hole and just crawled into it and, lost herself in grief. But she didn't. And the third is to glorify Christ through this, because I feel like when you have a testimony or a story and you're made to make it small, you make Jesus small at the same time. Like he's done so much for us, he's given us so much, but I've had to, tamp down on it because I didn't want to tell the story. And at the same time, like, the story is what the story is, and it needed to be told. So I say all that to say, don't feel sorry for us, for real, because like I said, I have married an amazing woman who loves me more than life. I have 5 incredible kids who are, doing and gonna do amazing, great things. 4, cool, awesome stepkids that I got through this, and an extended family. So don't feel sorry for us, but at the same time, be vigilant out there. I'm not blaming the church. I'm not saying every church is bad, because there are some amazing churches right now that are doing amazing things, and there's a wave of God that I feel like is sweeping through this nation for sure, and the world, and people are turning to him at like untold rates. So I say all that to say, thank you for supporting and loving our family. I guess the number one thing that I would say is if you have a situation, and I don't know what Callie's going to do with her story. I feel like she could help so many SA survivors, but like I said, our story's been tamped down because media and people in the community, but we're tired of acting like we should be ashamed of something. So thanks again for your love. Thanks again for your prayers for our family. Thanks again so much for what y'all have meant to me and April and my kiddos and even my ex-wife. Thank y'all so much. Love you guys.